Hi everyone, this is Josh Culp. We are learning Daf Shvui. We are on Daf Kaf Tet, and I want to talk a little bit about the Mishnah, something that may be a little puzzling in the Mishnah, and the Amoraic response to it. So the first clause of the Mishnah talks about somebody who is bringing a get, delivering a get in the land of Israel, becomes sick. He is allowed to send it with some other person. And then the second clause of the Mishnah says, if the sender said to him, take for me such and such an object, then the agent shouldn't send the object back to the sender with somebody else, because the sender doesn't want his deposit, the thing that he's collecting, to be in the hands of another person. Now, this the puzzle that the question you might have with the Gemara is, or the Mishnah, why are we talking about two such completely different situations within one Mishnah? Now, I think you can explain that as being a case of a sender sending somebody. The question is, when can he give over his agency to another person? But Reish Lakish seems to read it that way. Reish Lakish later in the Gemara says that this is where Rebbe taught that a borrower is not allowed to lend out something, and a renter is not allowed to lease out another object. In other words, Reish Lakish doesn't think that there's anything material, anything important about the fact that these two issues are brought up in one Mishnah, and he just thinks that here Rebbe taught a general rule of borrowing or renting that really has nothing to do with Gittin, and it just happens to be here in this Mishnah because we're talking about when is an agent allowed to transfer his agency to somebody else, and Reish Lakish would say, okay, here was a good opportunity for Rebbe to add on another law to the Mishnah. But Rebbe Yochanan reads the Mishnah as much tighter literary creation and would say something like this to Reish Lakish. First of all, everybody knows that, which is what he exactly says. But I also think a deeper read of Rebbe Yochanan is saying, like, why is this second clause here in this Mishnah and not somewhere else? There must be something about the get going on that we're learning in the second clause. And that's why he says, look, if the husband says, also bring me such and such an object, then the get is also not valid if the agent turns it over to somebody else, because the husband directed the agent to do both actions, bring the get and bring something else. Since the husband doesn't want somebody to bring the other object, the husband also wouldn't want the get to be transmitted by another person. So just to get into more of the holistic reading over here, the general phenomenon, Rebbe Yochanan seems to be saying something like, we need to ask the question, not just what we're learning, but why is it here? Why is the clause about bringing a deposit back, why is that here in juxtaposition to a clause about bringing a get? Whereas Reish Lakish would seem to think that, no, this is just a good opportunity for Rebbe, the author, the editor of the Mishnah, to teach us something that we might not have otherwise known. And that's an interesting question about the Mishnah, I think. How tight of a literary creation, how much can we read into the juxtaposition of different halachot in the Mishnah? How purposeful, how intentful was that kind of editing of the Mishnah? Does Rebbe hint to us to halachot that are a little bit beyond that which we can read in a simple, like line by line reading of the Mishnah?